Hey, everybody, welcome back to the Balanced Vibes podcast. My name is Kirsten, and today is another guest episode. I'm super excited to bring you more of these guest episodes because I think we have so many fantastic coaches and there's something to learn from everybody. So, hi, John, how are you doing today?
Hey, Kirsten, thank you. I'm doing super well. We just had Thanksgiving and yesterday I only had one plate because I filled it to the brim. So it was a good Thanksgiving overall, but I'm doing great. Thank you for asking. How are you doing?
I'm doing really good. Also, yeah, similar. Nice Thanksgiving and pretty low key, and had a really good workout yesterday before Thanksgiving. So now feeling wonderful.
Awesome.
Um, all right, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, who you are, what you do, a little bit maybe about your how you grew up, because I think your story is very interesting.
Yeah, definitely. So I would say, I grew up here in the States until the age of 5. And for anyone that doesn't know me, my name is John Jiron. And I actually have a twin brother. So at the age of 5, we went to go live in Nicaragua. And funny story there is, we went there and we like the only language we spoke was English. So when we went to Nicaragua, it's only like a Spanish speaking country. But we had to do kindergarten, first grade, second grade, all that stuff there in Spanish. So by the time we came back in fourth grade to the States, to California specifically, we ended up forgetting how to speak English and had to relearn that while only knowing Spanish. So um, that's kind of a little bit about my childhood there.
Mm-hmm.
But um, I would say the biggest thing, I do nutrition coaching, and the way I got into that was I started doing I did one marathon back in 2020 when the gyms were shut down because I was going crazy. I couldn't do anything. I'm
Yeah.
like, okay, let me just pick up a pair of running shoes. So that kind of started that snowball effect, and then eventually I found myself doing powerlifting. Really, really enjoyed that. I would even say, I don't know if I'd be coaching if it wasn't for powerlifting. And so powerlifting was kind of that avenue for me where I started diving deeper into nutrition and performance based, and yeah, that's kind of how I stumbled into coaching essentially.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Can you tell us a little bit more about the ups and downs with your weight? Because I think that these started for you very early on. You mentioned that when you moved back from Nicaragua to California, like there's a food abundance, right? And then this is where the weight fluctuations kind of started. Is that correct?
Yeah, yeah. So Nicaragua, it is a poor country, and I wouldn't say it was because the country was poor. I think I also was like a picky eater. I
Yeah.
was the kid that was just eating like the dino nuggets and stuff and with the ketchup and some like rice and beans, and that's kind of pretty much it. That was my diet. But I came to when we came back in fourth grade to California, me and my brother, we were pretty skinny. And so we get to California and I'm like, oh my God, look at all these grocery stores, look at all these aisles. They got like amazing food. And so within that first year, I mean, I wouldn't, I think if I had to put a number on it, I think we gained probably like 40 pounds, 50 pounds or so. So like very, very quickly.
Mhm.
Um, and obviously we got teased for it. And then we didn't know English super well at that time too. So it was kind of a double whammy there. And so we gained weight super, super quick. Middle school, kids are mean. So they
Mhm.
tease you about it all the time. And so when me and my brother, because we both were kind of going through the same struggles, we ended up doing cross country to try to run everything off, which we actually ended up doing. And I'm sure we ran a bunch of muscle, that very little muscle that we had as kids, ran all that off. Um, and that was still a struggle because you grew up getting teased and having these kids making comments about you and stuff. And so even throughout high school, even though I had lost the weight, I was still pretty insecure. I started doing football, hitting the weight room, and I was like, this is the thing that's gonna make me feel more confident and I'm gonna feel amazing. And it wasn't the case. And so that was a struggle on its own for a good amount of my life, I would say. Just dealing with like the body dysmorphia,
Mhm.
uh, especially, the rapid gain weight in fourth grade, and that kind of started that snowball effect, I would say.
Mhm. Yeah. Did you get a lot of like mean comments and bullying as a result of all that?
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. I'm not sure. Maybe someone in your audience can relate, but I would get the scoop. What was it? Scoop titty whip or whatever. Like the people are like touching you and they're like pointing things out, and
Mhm,
so it was like both mental and physical
mhm,
bullying. It wasn't to the point where we're not getting like punched and getting into fights, nothing like that, but it
mhm,
was still people teasing you about your looks and your weight.
mhm. Okay. So you were like insecure to begin with, right? As a result of, coming from a different country, not knowing the language too well, having to relearn, readjust, then so much food and then weight gain, and then other people just piled on it. So that probably created a pretty bad situation. And is this where your body dysmorphia kind of started?
I would say so, yeah, because I even before that, I like, you're a kid, you don't think about these things. And so I would say that's kind of the first memories I have of like thinking like, okay, what do I look like? What do I actually look like? And started kind of caring about that.
Mhm.
Um, so yeah, I would say kind of that was the pivotal moment.
Yeah, a lot of people have that actually, when they grow up, and it comes from sometimes from their parents, right, who just drop like a mindless comment,
Yeah.
or their peers or whatever. And it may seem like, and actually it's kind of annoying when people say kids are so resilient. Well, we don't know. This stuff carries, it just comes with us, and then we might be in our 30s, 40s, 50s, and it can still be sitting with us, like those bad memories, right? So it's really hard to overcome that.
Yeah, definitely. I think a lot of times we'll bury those things and sometimes we don't even realize they're still driving us on our daily decisions, which is super
Absolutely.
unfortunate because a lot of people, have experienced kind of what I've experienced and um, they don't get to address it. They don't do the work. They don't realize that they need to do the work to kind of overcome that. And it's super unfortunate because I think a lot of people struggle with it too.
Yeah, totally. So for you, powerlifting was one of the big keys that helped you to overcome it, right?
For sure,
Yeah.
100%.
Okay. Tell me more about that. How did you discover it? What were the first steps?
Yeah. So when I ran the marathon December 2020 and it wasn't like a sanctioned marathon. I literally just put on shoes and like went outside, had a bunch of my friends like at certain stops, um, like giving me little gels and water and stuff like that. It was like very, you just kind of made it up and made it work. And after that, I decided, okay, let me like try powerlifting because I kind of knew the sport, but I wasn't super aware of it. I just knew one of my buddies had done it before. And so I'm okay, let me try this out. Because I was still dealing with a little bit of the body dysmorphia. And so I'm like, okay, let me like not worry about what my body looks like and more how my body performs. And so that was the switch there for me. And so in January, once gyms in California started opening up, I'm like, okay, let's start training for a powerlifting meet. Um, and then I kind of and then ended up never looking back. It was a really really good experience for me.
Oh, that's so awesome. So previously, how did your body dysmorphia manifest? Was it like, did you want to hit like a certain number in the scale? Did you want to put a lot of muscle? What was the insecurity that the powerlifting helped you to heal?
For sure. I was never fixated on like the number on the scale.
Mhm.
It was more what I saw in the mirror.
Mm.
That was kind of my driving force, I'll say. And the reason I think powerlifting changed me so much is because it isn't focused on how you look,
Yeah.
rather it's more how you perform. And so yeah, I would say the biggest struggle for me was like the person I saw in the mirror and being uncomfortable with what I saw, especially during, pretty much almost the 10 years since like middle school, high school, and even into college. That was kind of a struggle for me until I kind of started doing powerlifting.
Yeah, yeah. And so during the time, so when you got started and when you were serious about powerlifting, did you like how did you like not check yourself in the mirror all the time anymore? Did you just reduce all that and purely focus on, okay, what's my squat like? What's my deadlift form like improving? Is that what you did?
Kind of. It was still like I was looking in the mirror and obviously I would see what I see, but
Okay.
um it I became okay with it. It became more like the things that I was saying to myself is like I'm getting really fucking strong. Like I feel fucking amazing. And so that was the narrative that kind of started shifting in my head.
Mhm.
It's not like I was, because before I was training, but it was more like trying to focus on how I look and try and look at a certain way.
Yeah.
And when I started doing powerlifting, it was more like I'm fucking strong. I feel fucking strong. And so what I saw in the mirror wasn't like this person that I didn't enjoy.
Mhm.
It was more just there's this guy that's really strong in front of me, and like that was amazing. That was kind of the shift for me.
Oh my God. I love it so much. And I'm thinking probably the same thing for you. Like you have to have this conversation with a lot of your clients probably as well, who are just overly focused. And if they're female, maybe like the number on the scale. If they're men, the looks, like I'm too skinny or I'm too fat. But if you can change that mindset, hey, let's focus on strength. It really helps. Do you see that a lot with your clients too?
Definitely, definitely. I think especially the first couple months, when they sign on, they're very focused on how they look.
Yes.
And um, the biggest thing for me there is like, okay, let's like not dictate our worth on the scale, on how we look. It's more like let's feel freaking amazing. Let's have like really good like gut health. Let's start like judging ourselves based on how we're improving each day rather than like the mirror, the scale, and these arbitrary outcomes, right, that we tend to base ourselves off of. Um, and I think that the second thing there is if someone does have kind of like body dysmorphia, it's you also have to it's very hard to you have to realize it also to a certain degree. It's not like I can just say, hey, I think you have this. It's more like they have to come to their own conclusion and start basing themselves more on their strength and how well they're doing inside the program rather than, okay, I got to lose this way. I got to look this a certain way.
Mm. Yeah. How much do you, as a coach, care about the scale at all, or like overall? Do you have your clients weigh themselves? How important it is for you?
Yeah, I'd say it depends more on the person. If the client's like good with it, then I'm good with it. If they're like, I don't even want to look at that thing, it gives me anxiety and gives me all these things, then we don't work on that. We don't even weigh the first 2, 3 months.
Mhm.
Um, Mostly like, how's your energy? How's your mood? How are your clothes fitting? Body measurements and progress pictures. I've had a couple clients where they don't see any changes in the scale, but their body changes are super drastic. Their progress pictures from 1 week to the next is amazing, and
Mhm.
so it really is tailored to the person and like what they're struggling with and making a decision based off of that. But I always tell them, that the scale is only one way to measure
Mhm.
progress. And
Yeah.
so it is an important tool for sure. I'm not gonna like negate that, but it's also not the only tool.
Mhm.
And especially if it brings a lot of mental anguish, then it's almost not worth it at some point.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree. You also mentioned that sometimes when people sign up with you, the first couple of months, they may not see like significant change, right? Or like doesn't seem like big things are happening. So how do you explain it to them? What's going on?
Yep. Yeah. So some of the first changes they notice is like, wow, like I feel like I'm getting really strong. Their confidence is going up. And we try to mostly have the because it I think a lot of the times tends to happen is people are on their weight loss journey and they judge themselves based on this certain outcome, right? So they want to lose 30 pounds, they want to lose 50 pounds, whatever it is, and so they're judging themselves on this one thing. And so the shift for them when they start working with me, it's like, okay, let's not judge ourselves on your outputs, right? It's more like let's judge yourself, your progress on your inputs. So
Mhm.
like, are you getting enough sleep? Are you having more energy to play with your kids? Are you hydrating throughout the day? Are you like not binging as much?
Yeah.
And so those things will eventually lead them to this 30, 50 pound goal, right?
Mhm.
But they feel accomplished by getting all these things done. And so we kind of shift the mentality, the focus to not judge on, I need this right now. It's more like, okay, let's focus on this and then the outcome will come.
Mhm. Yeah, it's almost like you have to prepare, you have to lay the foundation before you can jump right into, calorie cuts and deficits. And a lot of times people are just not ready, in my experience too. Like the day one, they come to you and they just want to start cutting calories, and we're like, wait a minute, you're eating like 1,500 right now. Where do you think we're going to cut? So
Yeah.
this is like where you have to have other things to look forward to in these first few months. Maybe when we are reversing your calories or something like that, it cannot be just like, hey, I lost like, 10 pounds in the first 2 weeks already. It's just not how it goes. And it's difficult because our world is like so instant everything, right? So it can be super super hard for people to understand.
Yeah, definitely. The way I like to explain it when clients come into the program is like, okay, we have this like, and like for context before that, so I did engineering before I became a nutrition coach. I was doing construction engineering. And so for me, this is like what made sense in my head, and this is the way that I explain it. But it's like, okay, we're trying to build your dream house, right? Your dream body.
Mhm.
And so we first need to address the foundation, because if the foundation is cracked, if there's any damages, you're always going to have to go back to square one and fix that at some point. Or, you're always going to have to tear down the house, right?
Yep.
And so that's the very first step, is like, let's address your foundation. That way you have a really good point to start from if you ever need to start over. It's not like you're having to, you know, kind of regain the weight. I think that's kind of what tends to happen, right? You go immediately to start trying to lose weight, and it's like you don't address your foundation. And so you're always having to go back and rebuild. And so you have this beautiful house you're trying to build. We first need to address the foundation, and then we can start doing the skeleton of the house. You start building your home,
Mm-hmm.
and then you just got to maintain your home after that, right? It's like you have your dream home built. Now we learn how to maintain it, just doing the care, right? And maybe not cruise control per se, but it's definitely not going to be as hard as doing the foundational work, and then building the actual house is more like, okay, let me just maintain it now.
Yeah. Oh, that's such a good point. I've talked about it on this podcast too. Sometimes people think that, everybody says that, oh, maintaining is super hard. It's so hard. It's impossible to do. Like everybody can lose weight, but nobody can maintain. But isn't it like it's based on your foundation? Like, how did you lose that weight? Because if that process was reasonable, maintaining is, sometimes it's so easy that it almost makes you laugh. Like I know that past experiences have been like, I have to like try so hard and cut and cut. But when you do it in a smart way, then maintaining is not that hard.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you hit it right on the nail. Like maintaining, if anything, should be the easiest part.
Yeah. Yeah. And
But
it's not like, if you've done like a crazy 1,000 calories and run an hour every day, then it's not easy because nobody can keep that up.
yeah, exactly. I always say it's the equivalent of like, if you're trying to dig a hole, right? It's like using an excavator versus a shovel. Like,
Mhm.
yeah, the shovel, you're gonna work more and it's gonna feel rewarding, but the excavator is gonna be so much faster. Obviously, it's gonna take way longer to get an excavator out there and get
Mhm.
everything set up. It's gonna take a lot longer, but the process will go so much faster than
Yeah.
trying to dig with the shovel. And just trying to get started in that sense is kind of how I see it.
Yeah. Sounds like you have like a lot of like little analogies and metaphors and things. So what are some other things, like other mindset tools that you like to help your clients with so that they can get better results?
Definitely. So I think it starts with identifying like what's important for them, and not just outside of weight loss, like what's important for your life, right? And so like for some people, it's like I want to have the ice cream with my kids on Friday, and they're worried like, can I even have it? And I'm like, yeah, like go for it. Like that's important for you, right? Your kids are important. And so like identifying like what's important, uh, whether it's your work, your spouse, like your significant other, your kids, or anything else, and then we reverse engineer like your what you're willing to do to get to your 30, 50 pound fat loss goal,
Mhm.
what you actually want to tie with this, what is actually going to get you there, and then things that you like, okay, I'm not willing to give this up, like day night with my spouse, ice cream with the kids on Friday, so things like that. And like identifying what you actually want and what you're willing to give up, I think is super, super valuable. And it's literally just making a list. Like, this is my I will. This is everything I'm willing to do for this goal. this
Mhm.
is the stuff that I want, and then this is like the stuff that I'm not willing to give up for my goal. And that can be like a super valuable tool to get really, really clear on how you're gonna go about the next 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 months, next year to get to wherever your goal is, and really set you up for the rest of your life.
Mhm. Yeah. Do you feel like sometimes you have to adjust these things too? Like there's something in the list like, okay, I want to keep this, but sometimes there's a little sacrifice too required, right?
Definitely. Yeah, yeah. I always say, it's especially like right now, the holidays, like drinking alcohol is
Mhm.
like super huge. And it's like, okay, like you definitely want to enjoy your time with your friends, with your family. And so really identifying, like, okay, what do I actually want? What am I okay with? And how do these decisions affect me? And just kind of being more aware of that can go like a really, really long way.
Yeah, yeah. I feel like also some things that you said those three categories. Like I want to be able to, I don't know, have good energy to play with my kids, but I also want to like drink hard on Fridays. Like, oh, you can't have this both, right? You're not going to
Yeah,
be like a great parents on Saturday if you want to like drink hard on Friday. So you have to adjust these things, and sometimes it's hard. I feel like there could be a little misconception sometimes that when you work with macros, which you do too, right?
right.
It's like, oh, they're so flexible that you can fit like whatever in there, but it's not exactly like this too. You still have to have structure, and you have to have a little bit of willpower and knowing what matters to you. And it's not like you can have it all.
Definitely. Yeah, it's and that's where the list that I have all my clients or some of the clients that I struggle with, that's what I have them work on. That way, we can identify like, okay, if you're not willing to give this up, then we need to like figure out other things that you do need to give up. It's there is a fine line, definitely. It's not like you can definitely have it all. It's just you can't have it all at once. It's kind of what I tell them.
Mm-hmm.
And you just need to identify like what season of life you're in.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like you need to do it. It can be, we'll say, hard work, especially if your foundation has a bunch of cracks in it. It can feel like a lot of hard work, but you're doing a lot of front end work so that the rest of your life you're like set up. So it's not like you're gonna do this forever. It's, you know, 8 weeks, 12 weeks of feeling really, really tough and struggling with this thing, but it sets you up to have the tools for the rest of your life. And so I always tell them, this is just a small sacrifice to pay. You can definitely still have it. I'm not going to tell you like never have this thing. You can never have like your beer, your chocolate, your wine night, like all
Mm-hmm.
this stuff. It's just we need to identify what season of life we're in and what you actually want, and then act in accordance with that for
Mm-hmm.
this specific season we're playing in right now.
Yeah, yeah, I agree with that. Um, who is your ideal client? Who do you work with the most?
Yeah. So I help busy professionals. The biggest thing for me there is because I used to work a 9 to 5, so I know the struggles of like, okay, I have to get up early, and they're rushing out the door. They like barely get their coffee. They're super stressed. Maybe they have lunch like scarfing it down at their desk, freaking, or maybe they skip lunch at 1 p.m. rolls around and they're like, I gotta keep working. I don't have time to go get food. And so um I work with busy professionals on like finding ways to make it so that they can start putting themselves first rather than feeling like they're so spread thin. And by the end of the day, it's like, okay, I got 2 hours to myself. Like, let me just scroll on Instagram, scroll on TikTok, scroll on YouTube because I want to try to recharge. And it's ironic there because we know that it leaves you feeling more drained afterwards. It's not really recharging you. It's giving you like maybe a little bit of a recharge, but not enough to get you going the next day.
Totally. Yeah. You get a little dopamine hit, but that's about it.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Just ends up being draining more than anything. So how do you fit like healthier nutrition and some meal planning, finding time for exercise if you have a person who's like working from 9 to 5, some people even, 9 to 7, crazy hours. How do
Yeah.
you help them?
Definitely like some of the things that some tools or some strategies that we've implemented with some of my clients is like, okay, you have meetings at work that you got to be at, like for sure we all have meetings. And so like, are you able to take those on the go? Like, can you go for a walk while you're in the middle of a meeting? Sometimes you don't need to actually set up your computer, and instead of trying to multitask, trying to get like this Excel spreadsheet done and try and listen to the meeting, it's like, okay, let's just like go for a walk and like do things that are gonna fill make us feel like really good
Mhm.
at the end of the day. And so making it also super easy when it comes to meals. I had a client that he travels for work, so he has I think they call it like a carp diem thing, but he doesn't have access to a kitchen Monday through Friday, and so it's finding things that he can eat that are also going to make him feel like he's still working towards his goals.
Mhm.
Um, Other clients is like finding like packets that work for them, such as like oatmeal or see, I'm not sure if you know the brand Seeds of Change, but I tell them like, hey, there's these like rice and what is it, lentils
Mhm.
packets that you can literally toss in the microwave. And so making it like super, super easy.
Mhm.
That way they're not feeling like I need to spend 3 hours on Sunday meal prepping. Like it's like, no, let's just find things that are gonna actually make sense for your life right now. If you want to cook, like amazing. But if
Mhm.
you don't have the time to cook, like let's find things that are actually gonna make sense for your lifestyle and carry you forward.
Mhm. That's good. Yeah. Sounds like you're really good at that. I gotta say, I'm not like I don't know too many of these things like you mentioned. And I'm like, no,
Yeah,
do your Sunday meal prep. This is more like, how I approach things, but it's good to know these little tips and tricks that will help, because I'm sure there's so many companies out there that have thought about all these very busy people and made products that are available for these people so they can still stay on track, because our lifestyle is it's just way too fast how it goes.
yeah,
We're too busy, but I guess some people maybe they just don't have the option of doing it other way. um
yeah,
okay, so this episode will come out somewhere mid to late December, so we all know what happens January 1st or 2nd at the latest. Maybe the January 1st is like people still like kind of stretching the couch and thinking about the diet they're going to start tomorrow. So January 1st, 2nd, there's a temptation to start a diet, to pick up some kind of really hardcore fitness routine.
yeah,
And what is your advice for those people?
yeah. There's a couple things there. The first one is gonna be avoid last minute syndrome. And what that is a lot of the times when New Year's hits, right, we have a big crowd of people who have this really, really big dramatic change. So all of a sudden they went from maybe zero times at the gym to all of a sudden they're trying to go 5 times a week. And it's like, okay, sure, like that can work for a month, maybe. But come February, come March, come April, it's you're gonna drop off the deep end. And so um the reason that happens is because all of December we're like trying to have all the alcohol, all the beer, all the food, and we engage in like this binge type behavior where we're on one side of the coin. It's like, okay, I'm gonna do all these things because on January 1st I'm gonna change super drastically. And so the biggest thing there that I would say for someone that is watching, listening right now is like avoid that. Start slow. Don't try to change everything at once because it will burn you out. When life gets busy, when the New Year's Eve, New Year's Day, we'll call it motivation runs out,
Mm.
you're not going to want to do all those things. And so change everything very slowly. That way you can build on top of every single thing that you're doing rather than trying to like stack your house right away.
Mhm.
Um, and then the second thing would be like recognizing the patterns that got you there in the first place. You can't if you aren't able to recognize the patterns, the behaviors, the thoughts that you're having on a daily, weekly basis, you're never going to be able to beat this thing. It goes back to like the foundation. Like if you don't address the foundation, if you can't recognize the pattern, you can't really step outside of it. You can't start working on that.
Mhm.
And come February, come March, you're going to revert back to your default settings, we'll say, right? Your original foundation. And so I would say like focus on that first. I wouldn't even focus on weight loss the first 3 months of the year. I would say focus on fixing your foundation, working on yourself, building those habits. And then once you get really good at those, then you can start, you know, dieting and trying to lose fat and all that. But I would say the first 3 months of the year, work on those things first because those will set you up for
Mhm.
the rest of the year. If you try to immediately start trying to lose weight, I can almost guarantee with a 95% certainty you're gonna fail.
Mm, yeah, it's so common. It's
Yeah,
yeah, that's the reality, and it's unfortunate. People, they really have good intentions, but again, the homework hasn't been done, right? What is the reason that every year on January 1st I have to start this all over, right? So something isn't clicking there if this is the case, right? So why don't we figure out what the problem is here?
yeah, and it is sad to hear sometimes because you a lot of these people will blame themselves, and it's like, no, you just haven't been given the right tools, the right information, the right steps. You Everyone just says, hey, you need to lose weight, but it's like, okay, no, it's not just lose weight. It's like you need to work on your identity and who you are, and as soon as you start working on who you are and the identity that you tie yourself to, that's when those changes come as a result. It's not like you stay the same person and then you lose weight, because then that's when you end up gaining the weight back. Um,
Yeah.
and it leaves a lot of feelings of, defeat. You beat yourself up, a lot of the negative talk, and it's this well, it's a vicious cycle, right? You just
Yeah.
kind of beat yourself up, you give up, you say fuck it, who cares? And then 6 months later, you're like, let me try this again, or next year, let me try this again. And it sometimes, decades can go by and you kind of can't get off this hamster wheel.
Mhm.
And that can be very defeating, very frustrating, very um, kind of like you end up saying, F it, I give up. And so I would say focus on your foundation. Don't like try to even lose weight the first 3 months. It sounds like super counterintuitive because you're gonna have all these people saying, "Go lose weight." Oh, you're on a diet plan. That's awesome. Congratulations. All this stuff. Like, no.
Mhm.
Work on yourself first. Work on your identity. Work on who you are.
Yeah.
Recognize your patterns, and and only then can you actually focus on fat loss.
Mhm. It's so true. Like those brain patterns are so deep.
Yeah.
The whole, the old things that have happened in the past, they are what's running the show, right? So if you've had like 17 failed diets, then the 18th is not going to be different until you actually see, oh, okay, here's the pattern. Here's what I've been doing. I still think that I'm a failure. I'm like a weak person. If you just like, you keep repeating this and it just pulls you back, and you gotta, I mean, you have to have this awareness to first recognize that there is a pattern,
Yeah.
and then, okay, what do I do about it? And would you say that it starts with self-talk? I feel like this is where it starts from. You just, even if it feels like fake or wrong to say that good things about myself, I'm strong, I could do it. Like, you have to start from there, in my experience. What do you think?
Definitely. I think a lot of the times we can't it's very difficult, kind of like what you said, that the thoughts are like automatic. And so
Yeah.
when you start questioning, like, okay, why am I like this? Why am I actually doing these things? What is going on? And it can help sometimes to just talk to someone, bounce ideas off of them, and kind of have that, we'll say, like an echo chamber. Like, as you say these things, you start kind of um unearthing some of the things that like are driving you on a daily basis, and that's when the real work begins, and you can start shifting your identity and become this new person that is 30, 40, 50 pounds lighter.
Mhm.
And that's essentially how you end up beating that 18th diet attempt.
Mhm.
It's you work on who you are, and
Yeah.
then everything falls into place after that. And there's definitely there's definitely strategies still there. Like, you still have to know like your nutrition and all
Sure.
these things. But I would say that's probably like the biggest thing is like everyone, I don't we don't need to tell them, hey, this broccoli is like gonna be better for you than this cookie, right? Or this whatever, this donut, right? And
Yeah.
it's more like, okay, let's identify, let's start recognizing these things. And then and then only then, once we recognize, we can step outside of them and be able to start changing that.
Hmm. Love it. It's so good. Thank you. Thanks for sharing, because the mindset part is really, really big when it comes to weight loss and health in general. How
Yeah,
do you see yourself? What do you believe in yourself?
exactly.
Can we just like discard these like bullshit stories that have happened in the past and not like identify with them anymore? These are the things that need to be done first, I find. So I absolutely 100% agree with what you said.
Yeah.
Okay, so if somebody wants to work with you, how can they do it?
Yeah. They can find me on Instagram and TikTok at @nobaddays_John. And honestly, I just give out a bunch of free advice there. So if, like, for New Year's, you guys want like a bunch of free advice that like can help you set you up for success, like just follow me on there, and that would be like the best thing.
Yeah. I assume that your free advice is not like avoid all carbs.
No, definitely not. I'm like have the carbs, have the protein, have whatever
Yeah.
in moderation for sure.
Yes, yes, absolutely. All right. Well, thank you so much. I'm gonna make sure that all the links get posted to the show notes. Thank you so much for coming out here today, John. I appreciate it. Do you have any last words you want to wrap up with?
Um, Last thing I'll say is the quality of our thoughts create our reality. And so once you can identify the thoughts that are not giving you the reality you want, then that's always going to be like the very first step. So that's pretty much it for me.
Awesome. Well, thank you. Have a good rest of your just a few weeks of this year left. So, and I hope to talk to you again.
Thanks, Kirsten.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye bye.